Back when I was in middle school, my sister had got pregnant in high school. And she got pregnant by a guy which she was dating for around like 8 months. When my sister finally got the guts, she had told our parents. And my mom and dad were extremely furious. My mom had told her that she's not allowing her child to bring any bastard children in the world. And that the only way that she can have her baby is if she gets married. And my parents were really religious. My dad was a preacher. My dad's ultimatum to her was to either get married or have an abortion. He really cared about our image to the church, and he said that she needed to get married. My sister at the time, she really wanted the baby, so she kind of proposed to the guy that she was dating in a way. But he had said no. 2 weeks later, the reason why he said no was because he already had another child and another baby on the way. Come back for part 2 of how my sister proposed to a guy that she was dating. So her boyfriend had said no. And she ended up finding out the reason why he said no was because he already had another child and another baby on the way. But she didn't find out through him. She found out through his mom. She had went to his mom to get her blessing, and she spilled everything. And his mom had no clue that she even existed. The whole time that they were together, he was already with 2 other women. She had first saw his son, who was running around in the house. And the girl that was pregnant at the time was the girl that he was dating for like 2 years. Instead of her receiving his mom's blessing, his mom told my sister to stay away from him because she don't want her ended up like his other baby mamas. Not knowing the reason why she even asked for his blessing was because she was pregnant as well. After everything his mom told her, she told her thank you and she left. If you guys want to know what happened after that, come back for part 3. Story time on how I catfished my boyfriend to see if he would cheat on me. So around the time I had to be like 15, 16, and my boyfriend, he was probably like 17 because he was about 2 years older than me. Everything in our relationship seemed fine, but he was very secretive. For one, he'd never let me touch his phone. He would always make sure anytime he put his phone down, the screen was face downward, or he'd put it in his pocket or just hide it. Anytime I asked to use his phone, maybe to call someone, he'd be like, no. I knew that there was something going on that he wasn't telling me. So I created a fake Snapchat account. I found pictures of this really pretty girl on Instagram, and I used all her pictures. And I'd post stories here and there, and then I decided to reach out to him. And he literally responded in like 5 minutes. I said, hey, do you have a girlfriend? And you're not going to believe his response. Come back. Part 2 on how I catfished my boyfriend to see if he would cheat on me. So, like I said, I reached out to him and he responded immediately. I asked him, hey, do you got a girlfriend? And he responded right now that he's just talking to people. But he didn't clarify inside of any of the messages that he had a girl. Then I started thinking maybe he thinks that our relationship is like still in the talking stage. So I didn't get too mad until I asked him if he wanted to go out. Like go out on a date. He asked me where I would like the date. And I told him I'd like to meet him at a movie theater. And like for a good week, we're sitting there flirting and we're planning out our date. Now the whole time of us planning out the date, when the date came, I didn't really expect to see him. But when I walked up to the corner of the movie theater, he was standing outside. Come back for part 3 on how I catfished my boyfriend to see if he would cheat on me. So I peeked beside the movie theater and I see him standing outside. I was seriously heartbroken that he was going to meet up with the catfish. And I had him sitting there waiting. I was texting him through Snapchat telling him, oh, I'm a bit late. And I literally had him sitting there for 2 hours. Also, during this whole process of him waiting, also went ahead and got food and came back. After a couple minutes, he was like he was just going to leave. By then, I had popped up at the movie theater and asked him, what are you doing here? And he responded, oh, I just got done seeing a movie. I was like, why didn't you tell me you went to the movie theaters? Maybe I could have came with you. Then he was like, no, I just wanted to go by myself. Then I pulled up my phone, showed him a picture of the girl I was catfishing, and asked him, was this your date? Then he pretended to not know who that was, and then I showed him our messages. When he found out it was me the whole time, he got mad at me and broke. Story time on how my best friend faked her death. By the way, we're going to call her Amanda, and we were both 16 at the time. Going through high school, Amanda got bullied a lot. She didn't necessarily know how to defend herself, so I would always find myself defending her all the time. And I had no problem doing it because that was my closest friend. We were like sisters and we grew up together. And people bullied her about her nose being too big and her acne. Just really mean stuff. There was this one time the mean girls at her school literally threw pizza at her face to tell her that that's what her face looks like. And I would always try to help her with her confidence. But I noticed me being around her all the time, I started to get bullied. And people would always attack me about hanging out with her. But don't worry, I'd always handle myself. But it got to a point where it was just overly done. So one day, I just wanted to see a test of what would happen if I didn't talk to her for the day or hang out with her. And the next day, she disappeared. Come back for part 2. Part 2 on how my best friend faked her death. So, like I said, I started to get bullied for hanging around her. So, I wanted to try and see what would happen if I decided not to really hang out with her for a day. And the next day, she disappeared. So, the day she wasn't at school, I went back home and called her. Her mom picked up and I asked her if she was there. Her mom said, no, I thought that she was with you. So, that night, Amanda never came home. So the next day, her mom had told me that she was going to go to the police station and file a missing persons report. But she was told she couldn't really file one because the person had to be missing for at least 72 hours to be considered missing. And I felt so scared because she's never missing. She never ups and leaves. And I started to believe it was because the day I stopped talking to her. And I was blaming myself for her being gone. And I was hoping that she wasn't kidnapped. But come back for part 3 if you want to know what happened. Part 3 on how my best friend faked her own death. So Amanda was missing for a week. Her mom had came to the school to let them know that if they ever saw her come by to please let her know or to please call the police. And during this whole time, a lot of people were coming up to me asking me what happened to her. And of course, I had to tell them that I didn't know because I didn't. But all I could hope is that she was safe and alive. There was a few students that laughed about her being missing, but there was a few students that cared. So I was asking people to put up posters. Around this time, social media wasn't really out, so we couldn't necessarily post anything online. Everything went on polls. Amanda was also in the news. And every day I cried hoping that she would come back. After 2 weeks of her being gone, I get a letter from Amanda. And I'm so shocked because I'm like, oh my gosh, where is she? And it was a suicide letter.